and Carlos Carrasco. I love Carrasco in this game. As we look at Cleveland batters against Martin Perez, there's one that definitely stands out. This is my third endorsement of the day, Carlos Santana. He is 7 for 11 lifetime against Martin Perez. I like that. Okay, Jose Ramirez is 3 for 10. I also like the fact, even though he's only 1 for 7 against him, Lindor hit the 2 home runs last night. I like hot hitters, okay? So I'm endorsing Lindor tonight, even though, and I go back to what Lou said, can't always rely on stats. I'm not here. I'm just taking Lindor because, doggone it, he's hot. So let's go with some Francisco Lindor tonight again that ball game. All right, let's move on. Against Carrasco. Now, a lot of sample size here for the Twin batters. Carrasco's been around a long time, and so have the Twin hitters. All right, so let's take a look at some of these, and some of these may actually surprise you. Some may not, but they're all pretty good hitters against Carrasco. And I'm looking at guys that have 20, some or more than 10 at-bats, but some have 20 at-bats against him. Here we go. Nelly Cruz, 9 for 25 with 3 home runs off of Carrasco. That's a .360 batting average. Jorge Polanco, 8 for 18 off of him. That's a .444 average. Eddie Rosario, 8 for 27 off of him. That's a .296 average. Miguel Sano, 7 for 27. That's a .259 average. Jason Castro, the catcher, 6 for 20. That's a .300 average. And Max Kepler, 7 for 30. That's a .233 average. What I'm getting at here is the Twin hitters historically hit Carrasco pretty well. Now, here's where you got to put the human element in. The Indians got to win this game. I mean, I know it's the first part of June. I know it's June 5th. I get that. But they're 10.5 out. And if they get beat 2 out of 3 or whatever by the Twins, they just drop further in the standings and further in the wild card. These are games they got to win. So, Carrasco, he's been Jekyll and Hyde all year. Right? Can he put it together? Will he put it together? If I got to take a player here, I love Polanco. And I'm a Rosario fan. I'm going off hitters here, lefties against righties. So if I'm taking 2, I got to take Rosario and I got to take Jorge Polanco from the Twins against Carrasco. All right, as we move along. The next game I want to talk about, the Giants and the Mets. Pitching today for the Giants is Beatty. Don't have anything to talk about there for Met hitters, not enough sample size. But Vargas is pitching for the Mets. I think Vargas may be bringing his gas can with him today to start a fire when he starts pitching. He's 1-3 with a 4.46 ERA. And here you go, your catcher of the day. I am definitely endorsing is Buster Posey. Yeah, Buster, he just loves to face Vargas. He's 5 for 13. And I got to take Buster Posey today after seeing these numbers and seeing Buster Posey. Also in that one, Brandon Belt is 3 for 10. But I'm endorsing Posey today in fantasy. Got to have him. Absolutely got to have him in the game today. Okay? Moving along. Detroit and Tampa Bay. Charlie Morton for Tampa. Turnbull for Detroit. Charlie Morton 6-0 with a .254. And I tell you, just because of the way he played last night, I'm going to stick with Miggy. He's 2 for 6 career against Morton. That's not why I'm basing it on. He was hot last night. I like Miggy. Endorsing him for daily. If you have him and you can start him. Of course, now I've given you a couple of first basemen already. But I really like that situation for Miggy Cabrera. Looking good last night. We'll see. Other games where I can talk about some players. Miami, Alcantara, 2-5 with a 4.08 ERA, facing off against Jimmy Nelson. First start of the year today for Nelson for Milwaukee. That game, the stats, one player that you might want to look at. I like him. Of course, I like all the Miami hitters right now. I like Cooper, a lefty. I'd go with Cooper, and I'd go with Curtis Granderson, a lefty, today against Nelson in that park. So I like Granderson, and I like Cooper against Jimmy Anderson today for that game. Those would be both Marlin hitters. And Harold Ramirez isn't doing bad, but I like those two most of all. Texas and the Baltimore Orioles, not enough sample size there. Means against Minor to give you any input on that. The Cubs are playing the Rockies. Marquez against Darvish. The Cub batters against Marquez, the most notable, is not necessarily someone that you would normally have, but you'd probably get him cheap in daily, and that would be Daniel Descalso. He's 9 for 16. I like Descalso. If he's starting, check the lineup to see if he's starting. That's an 8:05 evening game tonight. But if he is, I like him because he's going to be cheap in daily. Grab him, okay? For the Rockies against the Cubs, really no sample size to speak of other than Nolan Arenado, who's 3 for 8. And, of course, who wouldn't want to have Arenado? He's going to be expensive probably against Darvish. But if he's available, Darvish has been giving up the long ball this year. And so keep your eye on Arenado and Descalso in that game, Cubs and Rockies. Okay? Red Sox are playing the Royals tonight. And I got a big sample size here. So you got Chris Sale, 1-7 with a 4.35 ERA against Junis. Not much in the terms of Red Sox sample size. The most I can give you is J.D. Martinez is 2 for 7. Rafael Devers is 2 for 3. But I can talk about some Royal hitters, okay? And some of these are good and some of them not so good. In fact, not many are good. Whit Merrifield is 6 for 25 against Chris Sale for 240 average. That's as good as it gets. Alex Gordon is 15 for 64. That's a 234 average. I don't really like anybody against Chris Sale, but if I were going to take one, it would be Whit Merrifield in that game. All right? Getting to the short rows now because my time's about up and I got a couple more things to talk about. I better hurry. It's funny how things just get away from you, isn't it? You get talking and it gets really interesting. And let's see here. Lou says Cleveland has to play 100 ball versus the Twins. I agree. I agree, Lou. And that's why I say these games that Cleveland's playing Minnesota, these are playoff games. And I think that's how Cleveland has to treat them. These are playoff games. They won last night 5-2. They can certainly win tonight, but they got to do it. They got to win. And Carrasco's got to come up with a big game today because these are playoff games really right now for Cleveland. They're 30-30, and the Twins are 40-19. There's your 10.5 game lead right there. Okay. Cincinnati, St. Louis, 8:15 tonight. You've got Descafalina for Cincinnati, Dakota Hudson for the Cardinals. Another endorsement. Are you ready? Here we go. You've got to get Matt Carpenter, and you've got to get Paul Goldschmidt. Well, those are pretty obvious guys. But Carpenter, he is 11 for 24 against Descafalina, and Goldschmidt is 8 for 15. Carpenter not only 11 out of 24, but Carpenter also has 3 home runs. So he is a definite endorsement today. I've got to have him if I'm playing daily, hitting 458. Love that. For the Reds against Dakota Hudson, they have hit as a team. Of course, Hudson just played this year and last year. 10 for 25. That's a 400 clip. So apparently the Reds seem to see the ball well. No player has more than 5 at-bats against him in a career, but Jesse Winker is 2 for 3. Yasiel Puig is 3 for 5. Derek Dietrich is 2 for 3. No endorsement there, just saying look at those stats, and there's certainly players that you may want to take a look at in daily. The Angels. I got the Twins on my brain, haven't I? The Angels are playing the Oakland A's. Few players here. I tell you, Oakland's got Megden pitching. He's seen these guys a few times. Mike Trout is hitting .889. Did you hear that? Mike Trout is hitting .889 against Megden. And so Trout gets my other endorsement of the day. All right? So now I've endorsed about 9 players. I'll go back over these with you in a few minutes. But Trout gotta have. I mean, that's going to cost you some money. Albert Pujols is another one. He's hitting .667 off Megden. So, Pujols, probably not as expensive. And so, those are just some of the players in that game. Don't have a sample size to give you for Oakland against against the Angel pitcher. So now let's move on to the final game I want to talk about, which is the Houston Astros and Brad Peacock against the Seattle Mariners and Brad Leak. Okay, so for Seattle against Peacock, the biggest sample size, and this is a huge one, is Kyle Seager, who is 10 for 29 against Brad Peacock. Yes, he is, 10 for 29. And so I'm endorsing Kyle Seager today with his 10 for 29, translated into a 345 average against Brad Peacock. I think he's a player of consideration today. And for the Astros, look, they're hitting 287 as a team off of Mike Leake. So take any of them. I mean, you know, if you want to take an Astro, take them all. I don't like Tyler White. I told you that. I don't like him, period. I wish that they would get rid of him and move on to other players. Bregman is hitting 444 off of Mike Leake. So, and who wouldn't want Bregman on any team? I mean, that's the way I look at it, right? So, just to recap real quick, if I'm playing daily today, I'm looking at Jose Abreu, I'm looking at Ketel Marte, Carlos Santana, Mike Trout, Lindor, Jorge Polanco, Matt Carpenter, Kyle Seager, and Paul Goldschmidt. Just names you want to look at if you're playing daily. I'm not saying you got to get them all. I'm not saying you got to get any of them. They've just fared well against the pitchers they're facing today, and for fantasy purposes, that is one indicator of players that you can pick up as you play fantasy today. And what about our show? I want to thank everybody for being here. Unholy Toledo, thanks, fella. I'm telling you. Lou Landers. And the thing is, I get a good different crowd in the morning, different than what I get at 6 o'clock at night. I want you guys to come listen at night too now, okay? Every Tuesday and Thursday, 6 o'clock, it's my show. And if you miss those, you got to make Chappie's show with me on Tuesday night at 9. That's the best of any of them. I'm telling you. Chappie's prepared. We talk. We go through players. And we'd love to get feedback. We'd love to get questions on that show. I like questions here. I like you guys bringing up the fact that you can't just rely on stat indicators. I agree. They are an indicator, okay? But not the only indicator you should use as you set those fantasy lineups for today. Cha-Cha, thank you. Lenny, thank you. Andy, thank you. It's been a great morning, okay? So games start at 1:05 today. That White Sox national game. Go out and watch some baseball. Pull for your favorite team. Get that fantasy lineup set. And thank you for listening to Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports.